Aaron Wan-Bissaka and Jadon Sancho, who both dropped to the bench. Newcastle have a less successful history in this competition, with their last final appearance coming in 1976, which ended in a 2-1 defeat. The Magpies have lost their last 8 games at Wembley since lifting the FA Cup in 1955, and are also winless in their last 3 in the league. Eddie Howe makes 3 changes from the 2-0 defeat to Liverpool. Alexander Isak and Elliot Anderson drop to the bench, whilst Nick Pope is suspended. Bruno Guimaraes and Callum Wilson come in, whilst there is a debuting goal for Loris Karius. So the lineups in full for Manchester United: it's De Gea in goal, Dalot, Varane, Martinez and Shaw in the defence, Fred and Casemiro the holding midfielders, with Antony, Fernandes and Rashford playing behind the lone striker, Wout Weghorst. For Newcastle, it's Karius in goal, Byrne, Botman, Schär and Trippier in the defence, Joelinton, Guimaraes and Longstaff the midfield 3, with Saint-Maximin, Wilson and Almiron leading the line. Not long until kick-off for this League Cup final between Manchester United and Newcastle United. This is the 10th time the Red Devils have made the final of this competition, winning 5 of their previous 9. They are the most successful side at Wembley, with this being their 53rd appearance in cup competitions. Erik ten Hag makes 2 changes from the 2-1 victory over Barcelona in midweek, as Diogo Dalot and Antony replace Aaron Wan-Bissaka and Jadon Sancho, who both drop to the bench. Newcastle have a less successful history in this competition, with their last final appearance coming in 1976, which ended in a 2-1 defeat. The Magpies have lost their last 8 games at Wembley since lifting the FA Cup in 1955, and are also winless in their last 3 in the league. Eddie Howe makes 3 changes from the 2-0 defeat to Liverpool. Alexander Isak and Elliot Anderson drop to the bench, whilst Nick Pope is suspended. Bruno Guimaraes and Callum Wilson come in, whilst there is a debuting goal for Loris Karius. So the lineups in full for Manchester United: it's De Gea in goal, Dalot, Varane, Martinez and Shaw in the defence, Fred and Casemiro the holding midfielders, with Antony, Fernandes and Rashford playing behind the lone striker, Wout Weghorst. For Newcastle, it's Karius in goal, Byrne, Botman, Schär and Trippier in the defence, Joelinton, Guimaraes and Longstaff the midfield 3, with Saint-Maximin, Wilson and Almiron leading the line. Not long until kick-off for this League Cup final between Manchester United and Newcastle United. This is the 10th time the Red Devils have made the final of this competition, winning 5 of their previous 9. They are the most successful side at Wembley, with this being their 53rd appearance in cup competitions. Erik ten Hag makes 2 changes from the 2-1 victory over Barcelona in midweek, as Diogo Dalot and Antony replace Aaron Wan-Bissaka and Jadon Sancho, who both drop to the bench. Newcastle have a less successful history in this competition, with their last final appearance coming in 1976, which ended in a 2-1 defeat. The Magpies have lost their last 8 games at Wembley since lifting the FA Cup in 1955, and are also winless in their last 3 in the league. Eddie Howe makes 3 changes from the 2-0 defeat to Liverpool. Alexander Isak and Elliot Anderson drop to the bench, whilst Nick Pope is suspended. Bruno Guimaraes and Callum Wilson come in, whilst there is a debuting goal for Loris Karius. So the lineups in full for Manchester United: it's De Gea in goal, Dalot, Varane, Martinez and Shaw in the defence, Fred and Casemiro the holding midfielders, with Antony, Fernandes and Rashford playing behind the lone striker, Wout Weghorst. For Newcastle, it's Karius in goal, Byrne, Botman, Schär and Trippier in the defence, Joelinton, Guimaraes and Longstaff the midfield 3, with Saint-Maximin, Wilson and Almiron leading the line. Not long until kick-off for this League Cup final between Manchester United and Newcastle United. This is the 10th time the Red Devils have made the final of this competition, winning 5 of their previous 9. They are the most successful side at Wembley, with this being their 53rd appearance in cup competitions. Erik ten Hag makes 2 changes from the 2-1 victory over Barcelona in midweek, as Diogo Dalot and Antony replace Aaron Wan-Bissaka and Jadon Sancho, who both drop to the bench. Newcastle have a less successful history in this competition, with their last final appearance coming in 1976, which ended in a 2-1 defeat. The Magpies have lost their last 8 games at Wembley since lifting the FA Cup in 1955, and are also winless in their last 3 in the league. Eddie Howe makes 3 changes from the 2-0 defeat to Liverpool. Alexander Isak and Elliot Anderson drop to the bench, whilst Nick Pope is suspended. Bruno Guimaraes and Callum Wilson come in, whilst there is a debuting goal for Loris Karius. So the lineups in full for Manchester United: it's De Gea in goal, Dalot, Varane, Martinez and Shaw in the defence, Fred and Casemiro the holding midfielders, with Antony, Fernandes and Rashford playing behind the lone striker, Wout Weghorst. For Newcastle, it's Karius in goal, Byrne, Botman, Scher and Trippier in the defence, Joelinton, Guimaraes and Longstaff the midfield three, with Saint-Maximin, Wilson and Almiron leading the line. Not long until kick-off for this League Cup final between Manchester United and Newcastle United. This is the 10th time the Red Devils have made the final of this competition, winning 5 of their previous 9. They are the most successful side at Wembley, with this being their 53rd appearance in cup competitions. Erik ten Hag makes 2 changes from the 2-1 victory over Barcelona in midweek, as Diogo Dalot and Antony replace Aaron Wan-Bissaka and Jadon Sancho, who both drop to the bench. Newcastle have a less successful history in this competition, with their last final appearance coming in 1976, which ended in a 2-1 defeat. The Magpies have lost their last 8 games at Wembley since lifting the FA Cup in 1955, and are also winless in their last 3 in the league. Eddie Howe makes 3 changes from the 2-0 defeat to Liverpool. Alexander Isak and Elliot Anderson drop to the bench, whilst Nick Pope is suspended. Bruno Guimaraes and Callum Wilson come in, whilst there is a debuting goal for Loris Karius. So the lineups in full. For Manchester United, it's De Gea in goal, Dalot, Varane, Martinez and Shaw in the defence, Fred and Casemiro the holding midfielders, with Antony, Fernandes and Rashford playing behind the lone striker, Wout Weghorst. For Newcastle, it's Karius in goal, Byrne, Botman, Scher and Trippier in the defence, Joelinton, Guimaraes and Longstaff the midfield three, with Saint-Maximin, Wilson and Almiron leading the line. Not long until kick-off for this League Cup final between Manchester United and Newcastle United. This is the 10th time the Red Devils have made the final of this competition, winning 5 of their previous 9. They are the most successful side at Wembley, with this being their 53rd appearance in cup competitions. Erik ten Hag makes 2 changes from the 2-1 victory over Barcelona in midweek, as Diogo Dalot and Antony replace Aaron Wan-Bissaka and Jadon Sancho, who both drop to the bench. Newcastle have a less successful history in this competition, with their last final appearance coming in 1976, which ended in a 2-1 defeat. The Magpies have lost their last 8 games at Wembley since lifting the FA Cup in 1955, and are also winless in their last 3 in the league. Eddie Howe makes 3 changes from the 2-0 defeat to Liverpool. Alexander Isak and Elliot Anderson drop to the bench, whilst Nick Pope is suspended. Bruno Guimaraes and Callum Wilson come in, whilst there is a debuting goal for Loris Karius. So the lineups in full. For Manchester United, it's De Gea in goal, Dalot, Varane, Martinez and Shaw in the defence, Fred and Casemiro the holding midfielders, with Antony, Fernandes and Rashford playing behind the lone striker, Wout Weghorst. For Newcastle, it's Karius in goal, Byrne, Botman, Scher and Trippier in the defence, Joelinton, Guimaraes and Longstaff the midfield three, with Saint-Maximin, Wilson and Almiron leading the line. Not long until kick-off for this League Cup final between Manchester United and Newcastle United. This is the 10th time the Red Devils have made the final of this competition, winning 5 of their previous 9. They are the most successful side at Wembley, with this being their 53rd appearance in cup competitions. Erik ten Hag makes 2 changes from the 2-1 victory over Barcelona in midweek, as Diogo Dalot and Antony replace Aaron Wan-Bissaka and Jadon Sancho, who both drop to the bench. Newcastle have a less successful history in this competition, with their last final appearance coming in 1976, which ended in a 2-1 defeat. The Magpies have lost their last 8 games at Wembley since lifting the FA Cup in 1955, and are also winless in their last 3 in the league. Eddie Howe makes 3 changes from the 2-0 defeat to Liverpool. Alexander Isak and Elliot Anderson drop to the bench, whilst Nick Pope is suspended. Bruno Guimaraes and Callum Wilson come in, whilst there is a debuting goal for Loris Karius. So the lineups in full. For Manchester United, it's De Gea in goal, Dalot, Varane, Martinez and Shaw in the defence, Fred and Casemiro the holding midfielders, with Antony, Fernandes and Rashford playing behind the lone striker, Wout Weghorst. For Newcastle, it's Karius in goal, Byrne, Botman, Scher and Trippier in the defence, Joelinton, Guimaraes and Longstaff the midfield three, with Saint-Maximin, Wilson and Almiron leading the line. Not long until kick-off for this League Cup final between Manchester United and Newcastle United. This is the 10th time the Red Devils have made the final of this competition, winning 5 of their previous 9. They are the most successful side at Wembley, with this being their 53rd appearance in cup competitions. Erik ten Hag makes 2 changes from the 2-1 victory over Barcelona in midweek, as Diogo Dalot and Well, we'll leave that there because we are now underway for this League Cup final between Manchester United and Newcastle United. It's Manchester United kicking off from right to left with the red shirts and white shorts, their usual home kit. Newcastle also in their home kit today, playing from left to right. It's myself, William Maxwell. Joining me in the commentary booth today is Tom McGarry. And Tom, I think we're in for a really exciting affair.
Absolutely. This is possibly the most excited I've been for a League Cup final in a number of years. This is a game, a competition that both sides are so desperate to win to end their respective and relative long waits for a trophy. Of course, we all know all about Newcastle's a 58-year wait for a domestic piece of silverware, but for Manchester United it's been 6 years for them. That's a long time for a club as big as the Red Devils. So two sides going all out to get the victory, passionate supporters on both sides. I'm really excited.
Yeah, it's shaping up to be quite the entertaining affair as an early free kick for Newcastle from Miguel Almiron doesn't find anyone in black and white and goes comfortably out of play for a goal kick for Manchester United. So if you did miss the lineups in the earlier preamble, we'll run you through again for you now. So for the Red Devils, it's De Gea in goal, Dalot, Varane, Martinez and Shaw the back four. Fred and Casemiro are the holding midfielders, with Anthony, Fernandes and Rashford playing behind the lone striker of Wout Weghorst. For Newcastle, debut for Loris Karius as Nick Pope is suspended and Martin Dubravka is cup-tied. Burn, Botman, Schär and Trippier the back four. So there was an opportunity for a ball to be put into the area by Rashford, dealt with by Sven Botman to send out for the first corner kick of the game. Joelinton, Guimaraes and Longstaff the midfield three, so Maximan, Wilson and Almiron up top. But that was very easy for United to break through the Newcastle defence there.
Yeah, lovely whip ball with his left foot from Wout Weghorst to get Rashford away down the left-hand side. He sprung the offside trap. It was really quick, incisive play by United. I thought Rashford might have looked to drive infield himself and take a shot on the form he's in, but he went for the early low ball into the box and Botman did just about enough to poke it behind.
Yes, just about as we await this corner kick to be taken. Plenty of players standing on and surrounding the goalkeeper, Loris Karius, waiting for the delivery into the box from Luke Shaw, headed away well by Joelinton, back forward by Anthony, cleared away by Almiron, looking to set off the Paraguayan now, and he's got support to his right in Maximan. Will he utilise him? He gets away from Shaw. He's also got Guimaraes ahead of him, tried to play it in towards the on-rushing Brazilian midfielder, but it's cleared away by Diogo Dalot, and now United will try and attack themselves. Already very end-to-end in these early exchanges. Almost 3 minutes gone, still goalless between the two sides. Casemiro over the top looking for the run of Weghorst. He'll get there in front of Sven Botman. Will hold it up away from his fellow Dutchman, now finding Anthony. Ball through, intending for Diogo Dalot, that's misplaced, and that'll go comfortably out of play for a goal kick. Very bright start from both sides.
Yeah, I don't think it's surprising really, given the support that both sides will have from the fans that have travelled down to Wembley this afternoon. It's a little bit unfortunate for Newcastle when they broke forward so quickly. Almiron carried the ball really well. He had 3 or 4 options forward in support in black and white, and he almost had too many in the end. He didn't quite know which ball to play, ended up finding none of them, but it was a good counter-attack, and both sides trying to make a flying start.
Yes, as Fred picks up possession for the Red Devils. Luke Shaw will play it down line looking for Rashford, intercepted by Trippier. Now Guimaraes will find Longstaff. Almiron keeps it in play, finds Trippier, who can't squeeze the ball out to Longstaff. And the pass from Fernandes is poor, picked up by Guimaraes. And now Joelinton to find the Brazilian once more, aiming towards Callum Wilson. This is good from Newcastle. Wilson trying to get away from Rafael Varane, gets it stuck in between his feet, and now Anthony will try and drive forward. Good recovery defending from Dan Burn, and that will go out for a throw-in for Manchester United. There was a bit of space there for Newcastle to utilise. Managed finding Wilson, and his first real touches of the ball, it got stuck underneath his foot.
Yeah, hasn't quite been in top form really, has he, Callum Wilson, since coming back from the World Cup. Struggled for goals, as Newcastle have as a whole, but he's going to be an important player up there today, being supported and flanked by St. Maximan and Almiron. There's plenty of pace in this Newcastle lineup, and you can see on the big picture at Wembley, Eddie Howe wants to try and utilise that, particularly as the game settles down. Manchester United start to see more of the ball, and Newcastle have to sit back a little bit.
As Burn goes back to his goalkeeper Karius, who lifts it long, looking for Longstaff. His header won't find any man in black and white, but it falls kindly for Joelinton, who gets away from Casemiro under pressure from Weghorst, lifts over the top looking for the run of St. Maximan, who's got pace to Burn, tries to get away from Varane. He'll hold on to it, then find support in the form of Almiron. Back to St. Maximan on the left, 2 players in the area to aim for. Said cuts inside, tries to poke it out towards Guimaraes. Good tackle by Fred. There was a heavy collision between the 2 Brazilians, but play on, says the referee David Coote, for the time being. Varane then puts it out of play for a throw in. We are now going to have a stoppage for Fred to receive some treatment. It was a nice pass by Saint-Maximin. In the end, it was well watched by Fred.
Yeah, full-blooded affair already, isn't it? Saint-Maximin, lovely feet inside the penalty area. Manchester United players knew they couldn't dive in and risk putting in a challenge and bringing the Frenchman down. He feeds it into an area. It's just a little bit too far in front of Guimaraes. It always favours Fred to get in there first, but a full-blooded challenge, brave from Fred. It was important he was there.
Yes, it was vitally important. Then he managed to get a toe in front of Bruno Guimaraes. It was a heavy collision between the 2. Thankfully for Manchester United, Fred is back onto his feet and hobbling back into position, so he will hope to be able to continue as our off-tube studio pictures begin to focus in on the technical staff of Newcastle United, in particular Eddie Howe, watching on from the stands as the loud Toon Army get behind their side. And a trophy this season would be a wonderful culmination of what has been maybe an unsurprisingly good performance in the league so far, based on maybe some of the signings they've made and obviously the well-documented takeover from abroad. But with how they performed this season, a trophy would very much be deserving for them.
Yeah, we all knew an improvement was going to come from Newcastle once that takeover took place, but for it to happen so rapidly as it has done over the last 12-18 months or so, Newcastle have gone from relegation fodder into Champions League challenges and 90 minutes away from potentially winning some silverware.
Dan Burn with the long throw in, flicked on by Joe Linton, cleared away by Luke Shaw. Back now with Trippier, who aims for support, flicked on, looking for Callum Wilson, turned away again, this time by Lisandro Martinez. Rashford puts it through the legs of Almiron, finding Fred under pressure from Fabian Schär. Almiron then gets a toe in, back towards Luke Shaw again, and he'll spread it back towards his centre-back partner of Raphael Varane. Away from Callum Wilson. 7 minutes gone. Still no real shots of any note to tell you about in this game so far, but that doesn't really show the excitement that there's been. There's still been plenty of intent, particularly from Newcastle in these early exchanges, but Manchester United weathering the storm.
They are, and I think the game will settle down over the next 5 minutes or so if we don't get an early goal one way or another, and Manchester United that is, will want that. They'll want to try and just relax into the game. They've got the more big name players, if you like, in terms of players that are more used to featuring in finals, so they'll want it to settle down. For Newcastle, it's a very passionate, emotional start. As we say, probably were expecting that, but I do think they will gradually start to sit back a little bit more.
As we have a free kick for Newcastle, as Bruno Guimaraes was fouled from behind by Wout Weghorst, and he'll take the free kick short and backwards towards Fabian Schär. Now with Kieran Trippier, who looks to try and play an early ball. Instead, will have to cut back after being pressurised by Marcus Rashford. Little 1-2 with Longstaff before going back into his own half to find the Swiss international Schär once again. Botman now moving it out towards the local lad Dan Burn. Away from Anthony, back again towards Botman as United look to press high up the field, and they've forced the error. Picked up now by Casemiro. Anthony on the right hand side, taking on a mixture of Burn and Joe Linton. Gets in between the gap. Burn recovers. Guimaraes now to Joe Linton once more. Away from Bruno Fernandes. He'll find Guimaraes over towards Saint-Maximin, and maybe an opportunity here for Newcastle. That's a cynical tackle by Diogo Dalot. That's going to be a free kick, and is it going to be the first booking of the game, you wonder? David Coote having a few words and also being surrounded by multiple Newcastle players. I have a feeling that David Coote is just going to give warnings. He's going to be hesitant to give out early yellow cards.
Yeah, I think, he's going to give it a yellow
shows
card.
how much I know.
Yeah, well, I was like you. I thought, first borderline foul, if you like. He possibly let Diogo Dalot off. He was in a good position, though, David Coote, and gave himself time to think about it as well. Decided Newcastle were looking to break forward with pace and decided it was worthy of the game's first yellow card. And that's a tough one for Diogo Dalot, who's now going to play the rest of the match potentially up directly against Alan Saint-Maximin.
Well, considering it is a battle between Saint-Maximin and Diogo Dalot, from a United perspective, is that the worst possible player to have picked up a yellow card, particularly considering there's very few players like Saint-Maximin, probably in world football, in how good he is at attacking one-on-one?
Yeah, quite possibly, because he's going to be isolated against Dalot quite often in this game as well. You can't imagine Anthony's going to be covering back and helping out his full-back. You're relying on Varane to come across, Fred potentially to come across from midfield, and that could stretch at Manchester United. So yeah, it's a disappointing yellow card for them to pick up inside the opening 10 minutes of the game, and Dallow's going to have to walk a bit of a disciplinary tightrope and show really good game discipline to make sure he gets himself through this game without picking up another yellow.
As Shaw looks to try and inch his way further up the field with a long throw, won't find Wout Weghorst, headed away by Botman. Fred brings it down under pressure from Almiron, has been able to keep that in play. He has not, says the referee and linesman, and that will be a throw-in for Newcastle midway inside the United half. Little stats coming up on our screen. 58% possession in favour of the Magpies. Probably not too surprising based on the balance of play. United started the better of the two sides, but since then have struggled to break through a defence that we know has been fantastic over the course of the entire season.
Yeah, absolutely, and of course weakened today by the absence of Nick Pope, but that back four in front of Loris Karius should be able to provide plenty of protection to the former Liverpool stopper. And Newcastle, they've had more of the ball in these opening 10 minutes. I've referenced the passion that they've started the game with, but they've also shown good poise on the ball. The break and the passage of play that led to Dallow picking up a yellow card. That was brilliant play, getting out of a tight area, particularly from Joe Linton down that left-hand side. So it's not as if Newcastle are just riding on emotion early in this game. They're playing decent football as well.
So free kick here for Manchester United after Longstaff with a sloppy foul on Bruno Fernandes. It will be Lisandro Martinez that will take this. He's just trying to slow the tempo and slow the emotions of this game. He's probably going to be told to hurry up soon for this free kick. He's been biding his time, and then eventually takes the pass and finds Bruno Fernandes. He'll go back towards Diogo Dalot on the right-hand side. He doesn't have anyone ahead of him, so has to move backwards once again towards Varane, and now Lisandro Martinez to inch this ball further up the field. Looks for a long pass for Anthony, headed away by Longstaff, brought down by Joe Linton. He's trying to spoon it out wide for Saint-Maximin, really well intercepted by fellow Frenchman Raphael Varane. Now over towards Bruno Guimaraes, finding Fernandes. Down the line intending for Anthony. This is better from United. Anthony trying to take it towards the byline. Well held up by Dan Burn. He'll move it back once again for Dalot. Bit of space for Casemiro to pick out a pass. Lifts it into the area. Flicks on by Fred. Falls to Weghorst. Maybe an opportunity here for United. Weghorst won't fall down to him initially. Then gets a shot away. The first shot that we've had in the game wasn't too convincing in the form of power, but it's on target. It's the first save made by Loris Karius.
Yeah, Wout Weghorst, he's yet to score in the Premier League for Manchester United, is he? He has got one in this competition against Nottingham Forest in the semi-finals. The only goal so far he scored it in United red, and he did well to get hold of a ball with a number of Newcastle players around him there. In the end, the ball drops to his left foot, and he rather snatches at the effort towards goal. Comfortable first save of the match for Loris Karius, which I think is exactly what he probably would have been looking for early in the game.
Ball floated into the area, does not find the intended target for Newcastle, but will now fall to Trippier deep inside their own half. Share to Guimaraes, bit of triangle football between the Magpies. Trippier then moves it out towards Guimaraes once again. A support in Longstaff with a bit of space. Here is Longstaff now finding Almiron, has the overlap in the number 36, then comes inwards for Guimaraes. Trippier wants it on the right. Trippier will put a ball into the area, looking for Joe Linton, headed away well by Raphael Varane. Picks up now by Dan Burn, not a good pass, and Saint-Maximin won't get on the end of that. It goes comfortably out of play for a throw-in for Manchester United. I can see what they're trying to do. They're trying to utilise the wings a bit more now, Newcastle, but if they are going to find anything in the area, the delivery is going to have to be pinpoint, because Raphael Varane is very adept.
He is, and they can't just have Callum Wilson in there as an option for that last cross from Trippier. Joe Linton had ghosted into the penalty area. We've seen Bruno Guimaraes try and do that as well early on. It is important those midfield runners get forward in support.
As Saint-Maximin picks up possession, he loses out to Casemiro and Weghorst, manages to spoon out a pass backwards to Bruno Guimaraes, and now Sven Botman will find Cher, his centre-back partner. No real pressure from any man in red and white, so they'll play a few passes between the two of them. And Fabian Cher looks up and plays it down the right-hand side, and he'll find Almiron. Now Kieran Trippier back towards the Paraguayan Almiron, trying to get away from Luke Shaw. Luke Shaw with a vital toe in. Fernandes is there to find Fred, and now United can try and hold on to possession with Casemiro. Fernandes on the left-hand side, the United captain, finding Marcus Rashford, who we haven't seen a lot of in this game so far. Fernandes back towards Casemiro. Support on the far side, utilises him as well. Anthony with a little bit of space, and he'll try and take on Dan Burn. Pass to Dallo towards the byline. Dangerous ball in, cleared away by Cher, and then Guimaraes helps it away as well. It's a lovely cross by Dallo, just wouldn't fall to any man in red.
Yeah, good patient attacking play from Manchester United. Dallo getting forward in support of Anthony and just flashing a really dangerous delivery into the 6-yard box. Weghorst, it's too far in front of him, and there was no one else in red gambling at the far post. Good defending though from a Newcastle point of view. Cher, I think it was, who got the touch in to turn it away from the immediate danger. But that's what Manchester United can do when they do get the ball forward. It's only 2 or 3 times we've really seen it so far in this game, but on each occasion so far they have looked threatening.
Here's Lisandro Martinez for Manchester United, deep inside his own half, slowing down the tempo, moves it wide for Raphael Varane. 15.5 minutes on the clock. Listen to unofficial off-tube studio commentary. Manchester United 0, Newcastle United 0. As Dallo is forced all the way back now towards David De Gea. A rare touch of the ball for the Spaniard. He'll slow down proceedings, looks to go long towards the centre of the field for the run of Marcus Rashford. It's been left by Botman. It falls to Marcus Rashford inside the area. He'll be held up by Fabian Cher. It was a lovely pass by De Gea. Rashford back towards Anthony, who gets a shot away, and it's another effort that's been saved by Loris Karius, and that one again straight down the throat of the goalkeeper.
Yeah, another one just to help him build his confidence. Comfortable routine save that he did effectively. It wasn't the best defending, no, from Newcastle, was it? Long kick forward by David De Gea. Botman, he should have dealt with it. He was the player that the ball looked to be falling towards. I'm not sure if he got a shout from Fabian Cher, who was going on the cover, but between the two Newcastle centre-backs, they were a little hesitant, and it almost let Marcus Rashford in behind.
Wilson goes back towards Longstaff, slowly making their way inside the United half, and he spreads a pass out towards Saint-Maximin. He tries to take on Diogo Dallo, being surrounded by 3 United players every single time Saint-Maximin picks up the ball. He is immediately hounded by a couple of United defenders. Saint-Maximin picks up possession again and finds Joe Linton now with Guimaraes. Supports to his right in the form of Almiron, and now Almiron will look to come forward as Trippier on the overlap to his right. Will he utilise him? He will. Here is Kieran Trippier, the Newcastle captain. Tries to play through the legs of Almiron. It was too powerful and won't find any man in black and white. Nice idea, but maybe should have gone backwards as Guimaraes was in a bit of space on the edge.
Yeah, I think he should have done. Trippier overcomplicating it slightly. Almiron was making the run. It was one of those runs, though, wasn't it, to take away defenders and open up the space for Guimaraes and Longstaff, who were lurking on the edge of the penalty area, but he tried to force it through Trippier, and the 2 players weren't quite on the same wavelength. Long
ball by De Gea won't find a man in red as Weghorst angrily reacts after he felt he was being held by Fabian Cher. Nothing given by David Coote, and then Joe Linton dallies on the ball too long. Casemiro and Anthony will come away with it, and Casemiro has support. He looks for Rashford, poor pass picked up by Trippier, and it's very calm, composed defending by the Newcastle number 2 to find Joe Linton. And now Guimaraes tries to break forward, fouled by Fred in the middle of the pitch, and it will be a free kick for Newcastle, and it doesn't look like Fred is going to get a booking either.
No, it's a bit of a case that Bruno Guimaraes was the meat in the sandwich there as 2 United players came across. I didn't think there was too much in it really, maybe just a little nudge from Fred, but when you're moving at that pace, I think the referee was always going to give a free kick in Newcastle's favour.
Longstaff plays it down the line for Wilson, being held up by Lisandro Martinez. He gets a toe in to flick it out for a throw in for Newcastle on the far right hand side. There's a worrying signs here for Manchester United. Anthony currently walking rather gingerly, holding his groin. Not sure if he's overstretched or if that's an impact injury. We'll have to wait and see if we get any form of replay there, but that could be a cause for concern. Anthony, one of 2 players that are different from the starting lineup against Barcelona in midweek, the other being Dallo in for Wan-Bissaka. Anthony came in for Jadon Sancho, but he's still holding his groin. This could be a concerning time for Erik ten Hag.
Yeah, absolutely. Be one that Anthony doesn't want to let on to the coaching team at United, that he may be struggling, as you say. It may be something he can run off as well, but he came off the bench to score arguably his most important goal in United colours against Barcelona during the week, so he's got a bit of positive momentum on his side. The last thing he'd want going into this big cup final is to be forced off inside 20 minutes.
Exactly, as Dan Burn, I should say, will look to take this throw in. Long ball down the line for Joe Linton, held up by Casemiro, then gets a toe in. Anthony back towards Casemiro, looking for Wout Weghorst, who isn't blessed with pace, and he'll struggle to get there in front of Sven Botman, who utilises his strength well. Veghorst keeps the ball in play. Dan Burn helps out his teammates. He'll hammer the ball away from danger. Flicked on by Luke Shaw, backwards towards Alessandro Martinez. And now under pressure from Almiron, is forced all the way back towards David De Gea. We'll find Dallo. Back again towards the goalkeeper. Almiron won't give up the chase. There's a spread pass towards Luke Shaw on the left-hand side. Longstaff will try and put the press on. Newcastle trying to force the error. Fred, poor touch, then is being hustled and harried by Trippier, goes down for a free kick, he's not going to get it, then the pass from Casemiro is given away, but it's going to get brought back for the earlier foul on Fred. It's just getting a tad scrappy now between the two sides.
Yeah, it's scrappy and breathless, isn't it? There's a lot happening, both sides still playing a really high tempo, quite a few niggling fouls creeping in as well. It does feel like neither team has fully settled down, doesn't it? There's so much at stake in the game that we're seeing flashes of quality and flashes of nearly moments in the final third, but apart from that, it's very helter-skelter, and the ball is being turned over on a regular basis.
Anthony in possession for United on the far right-hand side, gets a cross in, diverted away by Fabian Schär. Varane with the header, only as far as Joe Linton, who hammers it forward looking for a man in black and white. So Maximan can't get on the end of it to keep it in play, so will be a throw-in for Manchester United on the far right-hand side. And the early promise that the Magpies had in this game with their fluid attacks has somewhat waned. It feels like Manchester United are now very much in control.
Yeah, it does, and worrying signs for Newcastle, because Bruno Guimaraes, just back from suspension, is now down, sitting in the middle of the park, and has that kind of resigned look of a player who may feel that his race is run in this game. Quite sure where he's picked up this injury, whether again is it an impact or is it a strain? Is not played in a few weeks? Is he just a little bit cold coming into this match? This will be a huge concern though for Eddie Howe, and we'll be hoping that they can patch Bruno up and get him back on the field.
Yeah, we're yet to be provided with any form of replay in regards to why Guimaraes is down. I'm not sure if he's feeling maybe a little bit under the weather, or if it's maybe a slight niggle with a leg injury, or maybe even just a bit of a concussion. Still, nothing's been provided in that regard. In the Premier League all season, they have not won when Guimaraes has not played for them, as he's back onto his feet and moving off the field to receive further assessment. Still nothing in the form of any replay, so it's a little bit ambiguous in regards to what's up with him.
Yeah, it kind of looks like he might have picked up a knock to his head, or as you say, maybe just feeling a little bit under the weather, and yeah, he comes straight back on now, so I'm a little bit unsure exactly what happened there, but that looks to me like he might be a little ill.
Yes, it very well might be the case. Only time will tell if he is going to be able to see out the full 90, and if there's any further minutes in the form of extra time or penalties to help separate the two sides. We are now at the halfway point of this first half. It is goalless between Manchester United and Newcastle United in this League Cup final, and it will be Tom McGarry to take you through to half-time.
Yeah, thank you very much, Will. Just looking at Newcastle's substitutes bench, Joe Willock's probably the obvious candidate to come on, but he's been struggling with a hamstring injury he picked up against Bournemouth a couple of weeks ago, so we don't know quite how fully fit he is. It's still a relatively small Newcastle squad for all the success they've had so far this season, but for the time being, Guimaraes is back in the centre of the field and seemingly okay. Joe Linton working the ball for Newcastle out to Dan Burn on the left-hand side. Now St. Maximan again has 2 or 3 United players in red around him, does well to come away with possession, finds Bruno, who's fighting to get the ball under control. He's actually given the ball away, the Newcastle midfielder. Weghorst back to Fred. Casemiro being closed down by Joe Linton. That's a really good win by Joe Linton. St. Maximan will now switch the ball from left to right. Shaw, though, cuts out the attempted pass. Fred then clears away. Newcastle claiming it struck the hand of the Brazilian midfielder as he closed out, as he brought it down. Callum Wilson was the closest Newcastle player in proximity to Fred, and he was certainly appealing to the referee.
Yeah, it was a very awkward bounce for Fred when he brings it down inside his own penalty area. We're yet to see any form of replay. It looked like his arm may have been slightly away from his body. I'm not sure if there's much in the form of contact. I think it was a bit of a half-believed appeal from Callum Wilson and the Newcastle players, but without any form of replay, it's very hard to know for certain.
Yeah, the ball hasn't gone out yet, so there is a possibility that VAR are still having a look at that, as Longstaff's pass down the line does deflect down for a throw. I'm Casts my eye towards David Coote in the middle, and it doesn't look like he's taking on any information from the video assistant referee, so play continues, and we can only presume without a replay that the ball didn't strike the hand of Fred. We're bringing you an official off-tube studio commentary of this 2023 League Cup final. Still Manchester United 0, Newcastle United 0 at Wembley. No big chance really to speak of so far in this game, but it's bubbling under the surface very nicely as Fabian Schär brings the ball forward for Newcastle. Good ball to Almiron down the right hand side. He finds Trippier on the overlap, teasing cross, and a really meaty challenge in the middle between Schär, who immediately signals for attention, and Lisandro Martinez, who I think really bravely diverted that over the top for what may well be a Newcastle corner. But we're going to have a stoppage in play now because both players need to receive treatment. Neither were given an inch in the challenge. And yeah, I need to be patched up now.
Yeah, definitely, and you can clearly see without even too much of a close-up in the form of a replay that there was a clear clash of heads between Lisandro Martinez and Fabian Schär. It's brave play from both sets of defenders. Schär does really well to rise highest and get any form of head onto it, but Martinez, he's never going to shy away from any form of collision, and it looks like, I think Schär might be more worse for wear, and looking at the top of the head there, looks like there might be a bit of a gash to the head of Martinez. It's very hard to work out though, as he's still receiving treatment, but I've imagined this could be a bit of a lengthy stoppage.
Yeah, absolutely, and the camera panned to both technical areas after that incident, and Eddie Howe and Erik Ten Hag and their respective coaching teams were all gathered around the video they have on the side looking at the incident again. I must admit, I don't think I'd be in too much of a hurry to see that clash of heads once more. It was really brave defending by Martinez, and Schär was coming in like a steam train, wasn't he? He was desperate to get on the end of the ball, as he was fully entitled to do so. I think he did win the header in the end. As I'm speaking, we've only seen one replay from distance, and again, that would possibly imply that it's not the nicest of challenges to witness again.
No, exactly that. I mean, Martinez receiving some lengthy sort of checks from the physios, and the fact we've only seen one replay would normally indicate that it's not something that would be best broadcast, but we can only hope that both players are going to be okay. If it is a bad head injury, I feel like if one player goes off, chances are both will. It'll be a case that either both are okay or both are going to have to be replaced, and we probably won't know until next 10-15 minutes, because I'm sure the players are going to want to try and continue irregardless of if they should or not.
Yeah, the concussion protocols will of course be in place. Looking at the benches, Manchester United, Lindelof, Maguire, obvious light-for-light replacements. We've seen Luke Shaw go into centre-back in recent weeks, so that could bring Malacia into play to come on at left-back. For Newcastle, club captain Jamal Lascelles is amongst the substitutes, hasn't featured too often this season. Matt Targett, another option, and that would, similar to the United suggestion, see Dan Burn move in from left-back, and Targett would take his position, but both players still receiving treatment, so we're going to have a large amount of stoppage time at the end of this first half, for numerous pauses already, injury breaks, but it has given the opportunity to do, certainly for the Newcastle supporters that the camera's panning to. They're enjoying their moment, and they're singing pretty loudly. Yeah,
and I feel like that is probably going to be the case for the vast majority of this game. Newcastle are going to be happy to be back in a cup final, be fully behind their side, win, lose or draw. They're just proud to see their team back in the promised land of football, really, after having spells in the Championship not really too long ago in history.
Yeah, 2017 I think they got promoted back, which coincidentally is the same year Manchester United last won a major trophy. We can see Fabian Schär there back on his feet. He's going to have a real shiner of a black eye on that left eye in a tomorrow morning, if not before, but it's already looking a bit bruised and red there after he's received some treatment. Looked like he's headed the back of Lisandro Martinez's head. It appears both players are going to be okay for the time being. As I say, concussion protocols in place means that they will not rush any decisions to bring the two immediately back on, but certainly in the case of Martinez, it looks like he is back on the sideline already and desperate to get back on there.
Yeah, it's a bit stereotypical, really, of Lisandro Martinez. That a bad clash of heads. He seems very non-fussed by the whole situation. He wouldn't really believe that he did pick up an injury in that regard. Interestingly, it was actually given as a goal kick in the end, although it looked like it really should have been a corner. Schär back onto the field of play. He's shaking his head. I don't think he's going to be able to continue much longer here. I'm not sure if it's just pain or if he does have a real issue, but he doesn't look too happy with everything going on.
Well, no, the way that left eye looks, he could easily have chipped a bone in his cheek or his face in some degree, and it's before you take into account concussion. But Martinez seems okay, even though the back of his hair is looking a shade of red from the blood he picked up in the incident. But play has resumed, and we are back to 11 v 11 as Dan Burns' attempted cross for Newcastle is cut out. Fred will pick it up for Manchester United and work it out to Wout Weghorst, who finds himself in the right back position. He sends a long angle ball forward looking for Rashford. Trippier comfortably cuts that one out. Botman now forward to Longstaff, and St. Maximin down the left back into Sven Botman. Switches a nice angle ball out to Trippier, who can get Newcastle going on the front foot down the right hand side. Flicks the ball away from the running back Rashford and feeds it into Longstaff. Almiron now on the right hand touchline, trying to work it onto his left foot. Tries to tee up Bruno Guimaraes, who seems to have shaken off his fitness concerns, which came a few minutes before the incident involving Cher, who's in possession, and Alessandro Martinez. Gone beyond the half an hour mark now, incidentally, in the contest. Still Manchester United 0, Newcastle 0, as Trippier, space down the right hand side, finds Longstaff. Low ball flashed into the 6-yard box. No takers in black and white, but it comes to St. Maximin. Brilliant from St. Maximin, and good save from David De Gea. Guimaraes then on the follow-up volleys over. That is by far the best opportunity either side have created in this game so far, and it all came from the magical quick feet of Alan St. Maximin.
Well, we know what he's capable of, and that is fantastic play by the Frenchman. It's a brilliant ball in by Longstaff, which is never really attacked by Callum Wilson. Then the skill of St. Maximin on the left-hand side to get away from Dalot is glorious. But you always knew that the moment he did that skill and got away from his man, he was always going to want to take the shot on for the piece of magic. But the angle never really offered that to really believe that it would end up in the back of the net. And yes, it's a good save by De Gea, but it's one that you would expect a keeper of his calibre to make.
Yeah, it's actually a decent strike from St. Maximin. He hits it cleanly, and De Gea just stands strong and just lifts that left arm to divert the ball away. Good save, great skill from St. Maximin. Maybe if he had his time again, he would have looked to square that to a teammate. As up the other end of the field, Bruno Guimaraes has been penalised for a foul on Marcus Rashford, who stayed down on the left-hand side. It was a strong shoulder charge, I think, more than anything else from Guimaraes, who came across and just made sure that Marcus Rashford wasn't continuing with possession.
Yeah, very forceful attack from Bruno Guimaraes, which wasn't really necessary given the way Rashford was attacking that left-hand side. He wasn't really attacking with a great deal of pace or momentum, and it's a cheap free kick to give away in a promising crossing position.
Yeah, on the left-hand side, Luke Shaw and Bruno Fernandes standing over it for Manchester United. It will be Shaw outswinging left-footed delivery. What a ball! And it's headed into the back of the net. And Manchester United, through Casemiro, have the lead. Just over half an hour played at Wembley. Manchester United 1, Newcastle 0. A delicious whip ball into the box from Luke Shaw, and great run from Casemiro. Once he makes contact, it was only going to end up in one place.
Yeah, it really was. It's a wonderful delivery by Luke Shaw on the left-hand side, and Casemiro's not really been picked up by a Newcastle defender. You can't really say that Karius has much of a chance in saving that. It's a brilliantly placed header by the Brazilian former Real Madrid midfielder, and it's planted perfectly into that left-hand corner. Look at the replay. Is he onside? It will be looked at. I feel like he might just be. It's a very, very tight call, though, but take nothing away from the header.
Yeah, it's a brilliant finish. VAR is having a look. It might have been Kieran Trippier, the closest Newcastle player to the free kick taking, may have just been playing Casemiro onside. That the replay we're looking at isn't a great angle. There's a couple of Manchester United players potentially in offside positions. Whether Casemiro is one of them, only time will tell. This is a very, very important decision. VAR still yet to make their call. The angle's not great that we're looking at, is it?
No, it's very inconclusive with the angle that we've been given. I think either Trippier or Wilson could be playing Casemiro onside, but it's a matter of inches, really. Given the rules that were given by VAR many moons ago, you would have expected that this is not a clear, obvious error and therefore shouldn't be overturned, but that's not really how things play out. Looking here, we've now been given the lines, and Casemiro is just about onside. The goal will stand.
Yeah, he can celebrate again. The former Real Madrid player who's won just about everything there is to win in the game. He doesn't have a League Cup winners medal in his back catalogue as it stands, but that goal just may have well edged him a little bit closer towards picking one up come the end of play this afternoon. Manchester United 1, Newcastle nil. Newcastle immediately trying to get on the front foot down the right hand side. It's been a very even game so far. We've just seen Newcastle their best chance of the match through St. Maximin. He was denied by David De Gea, and then a minute later they give away a cheap free kick on the left hand side. You mentioned it, Bruno Guimaraes didn't need to rattle into Marcus Rashford how he did, conceded the free kick. From there, a piece of quality from Luke Shaw to pick out Casemiro, and Manchester United have the lead. But Newcastle coming forward, Bruno Guimaraes out to St. Maximin, left hand corner of the penalty area. He works it back into Guimaraes, who moves to the right, this time with Trippier, supported by Almiron. Space for Almiron to cross. He wants it on his left foot though, and it's a poor ball back to Trippier, who does hold on to possession, tries to find Bruno, who throws himself to the ground in the penalty area. Wout Weghorst was the closest Manchester United player to him, and he wasn't happy with the way Bruno Guimaraes went down. Newcastle will look to keep the attack going. Almiron into Guimaraes, who has Weghorst in close proximity, and Newcastle forced back towards the halfway line with Botman. Joe Linton now out to Dan Burn on the left-hand side. St. Maximin wants it to feet, gets it, looking to turn away from Dalot. Remember, he's on a yellow card. He goes sliding in there, the Portuguese international. Despite the protestations of St. Maximin, it'll just be a throw into Newcastle rather than a free kick.
Looks like a yellow card's also been given to Bruno Fernandes for an earlier infringement. That's now the second yellow card of the game, both going to United players. I'm not sure if it's actually Fred that might have picked it up, but still yet to get confirmation. It is actually Fred that has picked up the booking there. But yeah, really good tackle by Dalot on that far left-hand side. It's a tackle he really had to make if he was going to dive in. But St. Maximin, I think that might be the first time Dalot's really got the better of it.
Yeah, it's a good piece of defending from Dalot, but I don't think that's going to be the end of that battle in this game. But Fred, yeah, picking up a yellow card. Not quite sure why, as another free kick is given Newcastle's way. This time it's Lisandro Martinez who's gone in strongly on the challenge, strongly into the challenge with Callum Wilson, who gingerly got back to his feet. The Newcastle centre forward yet to really get involved in the game so far. Get an opportunity though from this set piece. We've just seen Manchester United score from a free kick at the other end. What can Newcastle conjure up? They do have an expert set piece deliverer in Kieran Trippier, standing over the ball. It's quite central, slightly right of centre, so not the best of angles for Trippier to try and lift this directly into the box, but as I say, we know he has the quality. Fabian Schär's just come across and had a word with the Newcastle skipper as well, telling him perhaps where he wants the ball delivered. Botman, Burn forward from the back as well as he goes short. Trippier into Wilson, who gets a shot away, blocked by Bruno Fernandes, and the follow-up is sent over the top of the crossbar by Almiron. He wants a corner. Not sure if it's been given. It might well be a goal kick to Manchester United.
I think that is going to be the case. It was almost very, very clever from Kieran Trippier to set off Callum Wilson down the right-hand side, but maybe there just wasn't enough zip in the pass for him to really get a good shot away early, but was very well defended in the end by Manchester United. When it fell to Almiron, I thought his shot did take a deflection, but clearly not. It's a waste of a good opportunity for Newcastle. They really need to start testing David De Gea. He has had far too little to do from a Magpies point of view.
Yeah, just that one effort from St. Maximin that tested the Manchester United goalkeeper. We've got 7 minutes of the opening 45 to play, but with the VAR decision with the goal and the injuries that we've seen in this first half as well, there could be plenty of time to play before the break, as Weghorst bringing the ball forward for United into Marcus Rashford. Shot deflects away from Karius and into the back of the net, and quick as a flash, Manchester United have a 2-goal lead in the League Cup final. Marcus Rashford cannot stop scoring. His left foot effort, I think it deflects off Longstaff, which takes it away agonisingly from the outstretched dive of Karius, who gets fingertips to it, but he can't keep it out. Manchester United 2, Newcastle 0.
Big goal there for Manchester United. That might just kill a little bit of momentum that Newcastle were looking to get. Newcastle really now have to be the next goal scorers in this game. It's a wonderful play by particularly Wout Weghorst in the middle of the park when he picks it up from a bit of scrappy play between the two. Weghorst decides to start darting inwards, and it's a perfectly weighted pass for Rashford, and his shot just spoons off the toe, I think, of Sven Botman in the end, which helps lift it over Loris Karius. He can't react in time. He gets a fingertip to it, but he can't do anything to keep it out. 2-0 to United.
Yeah, clinical for Manchester United, and they get their luck as well, which you are always going to need to win a cup final. It just spoons off the boot of Botman, who's trying to get across. He's doing the right thing. He's so unfortunate, and all Karius' momentum is going for the low strike from Rashford, and it spoons up over the goalkeeper and into the back of the net. And Marcus Rashford has yet another goal in Manchester United colours, and he's doubled their lead in this cup final. Manchester United 2, Newcastle 0, and the supporters in red are singing now. Newcastle have temporarily at least gone a little bit quiet. There's still plenty of time for them to work their way back into this cup final, but it's very much advantage Manchester United. And can they get a third goal? Marcus Rashford bringing the ball down superbly. Was he fouled by Cher? Yes, he was, says David Coote. And I mentioned 5 minutes now, plus a lengthy stoppage time period to come at the end of this first half. It is imperative from a Newcastle point of view they don't concede again. Yeah,
it really, really is. They've got to get the next goal. I mean, it's not exactly critical that they need to get this next goal before the half-time. Maybe a team talk from Eddie Howe to help re-inspire the troops might be the best practice, but they cannot afford to concede a third, because then a comeback might be somewhat impossible.
Yeah, they need to keep their heads and remain calm and positive at Newcastle. For Manchester United, if they could get that third goal, then they really would be in a commanding, well, beyond a commanding position. They'd be in dreamland, really. They wouldn't have been expecting to be 3-0 up by the half-time break. As it is, they lead by 2 goals to 0, despite only having 39% of the possession in this game so far. They've certainly been more clinical with it. Just the one shot on target for Newcastle in the game to date. Dan Burn there trying to find Joe Linton down the left-hand side. St. Maximin, who had that shot on target, drifted in field from the left, feeds it into Grimmer Rice, who has to go backwards into his own half with Fabian Schär, who, positive piece of news for Newcastle, does appear to have shaken off his facial knock, as a rather hopeful ball forward there from Sven Botman goes straight into the gloves of David De Gea. The camera then pans to Loris Karius at the other end of the field, but I don't think he can be blamed at all for either of the two United goals.
No, not at all. I mean, it was always going to be a bit of a trial by fire to make your club debut in this sort of fixture. But I mean, the first goal was just a beautifully placed header by Casemiro so far into the corner. Wembley goals are always very, very wide. It's always going to be difficult to cover every area of it. And then the second one, I always think there's an argument that if you get a fingertip to it, then maybe you should be doing better. But the fact is, it deflects in front of him, so close in front of him as well, spoons it up. He's not expecting that. It's very, very unfortunate. So I think he can keep his head held high. That all the shots he has been able to save have been saved comfortably.
Yeah, I think he was on his way down for that second one, wasn't he? So to get the strength in those fingertips as you're falling away from the ball would be very, very difficult. Newcastle have won themselves a corner, though. Marcus Rashford back doing his defensive work, cutting out an attempted piece of play by Trippier, who will take this corner out swinger. From the last set-piece opportunity Newcastle have, they do have some really big options. Cher, Burn, Botman, they've worked this one short though. Trippier now lifts it into the box and it's headed just wide of the target by Dan Burn. Sorry, it's Sean Longstaff, isn't it? Who's got, no, it's Dan Burn. Okay, right, it was one of the local lads anyway. Dan Burn stretching to get on the ball. The full 6'7" of him couldn't quite get the contact he was looking for, and it goes just wide of the target. Yeah, good opportunity though there for Newcastle. Lovely delivery into the area from Kieran Trippier, and it's probably the player they would have wanted to fall to based on their height in the form of Dan Burn. He's being very much manhandled by Luke Shaw and maybe another United defender in the area. 6 yards out, tries to glance it towards the far post, just doesn't quite get the accuracy, but better from a Magpies point of view. Absolutely, that will get the crowd going once again. Eddie Howe deep in conversation with his assistant Jason Tyndall on the touchline, perhaps plotting what they're going to be saying to their players at half-time to get them fully believing once again, as Grimmer Rice picks the pocket of Fred, can't quite squeeze his way past Shaw down the Newcastle right. Shaw as well actually to get a throw-in for his side as well. We're about to approach the final minute of the opening at 45 before we find out how much will be added on for stoppages at the end of the game. Plenty of legendary figures from both teams in attendance at Wembley today. We've already seen Sir Alex Ferguson from Manchester United. The camera just panning there to a rather glum-looking Alan Shearer, who was the Newcastle captain the last time they reached a cup final against Manchester United. It was an FA Cup final back in 1999. Goals from Teddy Sheringham and Paul Scholes. And in Manchester United, a 2-0 win that day as Joe Linton did some really good industrious work down the left-hand side. But in the end, with Casemiro coming across, it just peters out and goes behind for a goal kick.
Yeah, and Casemiro immediately after winning the goal kick screams at his own fans to get them more vocal and behind their side. He's a wondrous player, Casemiro. The fact he's won basically everything in club football from his time at Real Madrid, the fact that he still plays every game like it's his first and still has that hunger and tenacity, it's a sign of a wonderful professional.
I can't think of a player who embodies more of a winner than in world football. I mean, he has been there, done that, got the t-shirt several times round with Real Madrid, but you can see that desire and winning mentality he still has, and he's brought that to Manchester United, as well as all the brilliant footballing qualities that he also possesses. Certainly seems to be one of the signings of the season, as Sean Longstaff has gone down crumpled in a heap just on the halfway line. Newcastle protesting because it's Fred, I think the Manchester United player, who's been penalised, and he of course is on a yellow card. He's a bit perplexed by the whole thing himself, the Manchester United player, but Longstaff is staying down, and again David Coote is giving himself plenty of time to think.
Yeah, seeing a replay here, I'm not sure if he gets much of the ball, but I don't think he really gets much of Longstaff either. I don't think this will be another yellow card for Fred. I mean, players still surrounding David Coote to try and maybe influence his decision making. But that might be the way Newcastle get some form of way back into this game, is try and focus on the players currently already in his notebook and try and force them off the field. That man advantage could be enough to swing the tide in their favour.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just a foul. It's a coming together. Longstaff just pokes the ball ahead of Fred, and he gets caught almost with his momentum swinging the foot. Longstaff more than anything Fred did. So a free kick, yes, but it's not a yellow card. Certainly shouldn't be a second yellow card. I'm not actually sure if they've even given a free kick. It looks like, yeah, it's going to be a Manchester United throw-in. So in fairness to Newcastle, maybe that's what they were arguing. They should have had a foul rather than just the fact that Fred may have picked up a second yellow. Yeah, but
very possibly. I think it's just more signs of frustration kicking in for the Magpies. The fact they've been so dominant in possession, yet still not creating too many clear opportunities, and the fact they find themselves 2 goals behind must be a really frustrating time for them. They need to sort of calm their nerves and get through to half-time.
Yeah, because there's a chance for Manchester United. Fred, though, can't quite thread the ball through to Bruno Fernandes, who'd made a good run forward. Into 5 minutes of stoppage time, incidentally, at the end of this first half. That's probably the minimum I was expecting, in all truth. We've had 2 minutes of it, over 2 minutes now, so not long until Eddie Howe and Eric Ten Hag will get to speak to their troops at the interval. It's going to be a very important 15-minute break for Eddie Howe. It's Marcus Rashford in possession for Manchester United, the scorer of their second goal this afternoon after Casemiro headed the Red Devils in front around about the half-an-hour mark in this game. Varane now under pressure for United. He's lost the ball. It falls to Joe Linton, who pokes it out to St. Maximin. He threw it infield now to Bruno Guimaraes, held up by Fred. Has to go backwards towards Cher. Inside the Manchester United half, he rolls it into Guimaraes again, and now Botman can join the attack. Out to St. Maximin it goes. Burns made a run forward. St. Maximin ignores him for now. Instead goes back infield towards Sven Botman. A methodical approach from Newcastle with this attack. St. Maximin trying to find Burn. Anthony doing a really good defensive job, though. Brilliant from Anthony, and then he flicks the ball down the line for Dalot, who releases Weghorst, who's waiting for the support of Rashford. He won't have the legs to get beyond Cher himself, but he will strike towards goal and draw a fingertip save from Loris Karius, who turns it behind for a corner.
Brilliant goalkeeping there by Karius. A fantastic play by Anthony and Weghorst down the right-hand side. Anthony does so well to dispossess St. Maximin and then Dan Burn, and it's a glorious little flick to Fernandes, then plays it down the line for Weghorst. And you can see he's wanting to find Rashford initially. The pass is never quite on, so decides just to take it on, strikes it well, and finds Karius flinging to his right-hand side to tip it away.
He's had a very good first half without Weghorst, an assist to his name for the Rashford goal, and he almost had his second at Manchester United goal himself there. And he might still get an opportunity from this resulting corner, which will be taken by Bruno Fernandes. Whipped Right-footed ball in, dangerous delivery into the 6-yard box that's headed clear by Dan Burn. United will look to keep the attack alive, though. It goes back out to the corner taker, Fernandez, who quite on the same wavelength with Luke Shaw on that occasion. Almiron will bring the ball clear for Newcastle via Scher. Send a long ball up to their halfway line. Shaw's header down, though, is picked up by Almiron. Shaw bites in with the challenge to immediately win possession back for Manchester United. Just around 25 seconds of stoppage time remaining at the end of this first half. Manchester United 2, Newcastle 0. Loose touch by Weghorst, but he gets it back. Can't quite flick it onto Rashford. Casemiro gets a toe in. Ball bouncing around inside Newcastle's half before it eventually drops to Anthony on the right-hand side for Manchester United, twisting, turning, trying to get away from Dan Burn. Brilliant skill from Anthony. He's turned away from Burn, then goes back for a second go, and Newcastle didn't like that. There's a very strong challenge from Joe Linton to pinch the ball back. He then hauls it's Casemiro down to the ground very unnecessarily. Joe Linton slightly losing his head at the end of this first half, and he's not going to escape the wrath of David Coote, the referee. He picks up a yellow card.
And that's fully deserved for Joe Linton as well. He hit the nail on the head. He just lost his head. He went flying into the tackle on Anthony initially, and then the balls are going in favour of a Newcastle man anyway. Then Joe Linton gets his arms all over the collarbone of Casemiro before yanking him down to the floor. Really unnecessary from the Newcastle man, and he'll now just have to calm himself for the remainder of this fixture.
Yeah, he needs to just get back in and relax a little bit at half time. It certainly feels like Newcastle need the break. It's brilliant skill though from Anthony down the right, and he's had a fantastic 3 or 4 minutes at the end of this first half. The Brazilian, I think Joe Linton was too enamoured, and he certainly made sure he was getting ball and man in that challenge before he then did haul Casemiro to the ground. United have worked the resulting free kick short, and that brings the first half to an end. Manchester United leading Newcastle by 2-0. Casemiro and Marcus Rashford on the score sheet. Perhaps Erik ten Hag's side just 45 minutes away from winning our first major trophy since 2017. Join us for second half coverage shortly. Manchester United 2, Newcastle 0.
Half-time, it is Manchester United 2, Newcastle United 0. The Red Devils took the lead from a free kick from Luke Shaw, but putting it into the area, headed in by Casemiro into the left-hand corner of the net. Their second came when Weghorst found Rashford with a perfectly weighted pass. Rashford's shot took a big deflection off of Sven Botman, looping it over Karius into the back of the net. Newcastle haven't played badly and have created a fair few opportunities. The closest they came was the ball falling to St Maximin, who got away from Dalot. His shot from a tight angle, well saved. Half-time, it is Manchester United 2, Newcastle United 0. The Red Devils took the lead from a free kick from Luke Shaw, but putting it into the area, headed in by Casemiro into the left-hand corner of the net. Their second came when Weghorst found Rashford with a perfectly weighted pass. Rashford's shot took a big deflection off of Sven Botman, looping it over Karius into the back of the net. Newcastle haven't played badly and have created a fair few opportunities. The closest they came was the ball falling to St Maximin, who got away from Dalot. His shot from a tight angle, well saved. Half-time, it is Manchester United 2, Newcastle United 0. The Red Devils took the lead from a free kick from Luke Shaw, but putting it into the area, headed in by Casemiro.